Hello guys, what's up? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction. We're here for UFC 258. Usman versus Gilbert Burns is our main event, and we're going to find out who the king of the welterweight division really is, as Kamaru Usman looks to defend his belt yet again against a familiar foe in Gilbert Burns, former training partner, I should say. These guys have sparred a lot together, so there's all that kind of aspect. It's a kind of new thing that I'm looking forward to kind of find out who the kind of best guy in the gym was then. Kind of got my takes on that. But really, I don't want to say it's a strong pay-per-view, if I'm being honest with you. I think it's decent. I think that there's some fights throughout that I'm looking forward to kind of talking about. And coming off a really good week last week, I went 11-1 with my picks. And I won 3 of my 5 bets, but I kind of left some money out there, and I'm a little bit pissed about that because I said this time last week that I was going to bet Procopio, I was going to bet Guida, and I didn't bet either one of them. And then Daniil Marquez, I was going to bet. I was thinking about betting him on Saturday and never bet him, so I left some money out there, absolutely. So it kind of annoyed me a little bit. I still went for 4.43 units. So yeah, really, really decent start. If you are new to the channel, please hit that sub button. Still trying to get to 4,000 subs. If you can throw a like on there, a thumbs up, it'd be much, much appreciated. And like I say, let me know your picks, predictions, DraftKings picks, bets that you have. I just want to see how everybody's kind of faring and where they're kind of heading this week. I've got one bet. Probably going to have 2 by the end of tonight, depending if the line kind of shifts a little bit. So, looking forward to talking about the card. I can see some people in the chat there. I'll get to use as I kind of get through the card a little bit, guys, and I'll bring some comments up there. But like I say, if you can throw a thumbs up, support the channel, it's always appreciated. And to the couple of naysayers, I had some people sending me kind of really rude emails. Guys, if you don't like watching me, why are you watching me if you don't like me? There's plenty of other predictors out there. Go support them. Go watch their stuff. Like I say, I'm just here because I love talking about the sport. So just don't hate. Go somewhere else if you don't like what I'm saying or my picks or whatever. So all the best to you guys if you stick around or not. So right, let's get into this card. Starting off with a fight which literally got added, I want to say about 3 hours ago. It's a catchweight bout of 140 pounds. We've got Andre Ewell against Chris Gutierrez, which I really only learned of about 90 minutes ago. So I've not had any time to really go and look into it. And it's something that I will do to see when the lines open up, if there's maybe an advantage in any spot there. But you've kind of got the boxer, the long boxer in Andre Ewell against the kicker in Chris Gutierrez, who's got a really, really, really solid kicking game, a really debilitating kind of kicking game. And if he gets that off and he lands at will, it's going to be a short night. But like I say, then you've got someone like Andre Ewell who's got an extreme kind of reach advantage that he kind of uses. I don't like the way he kind of fritters out in the middle of fights. He starts off strong and then he kind of lets you worm your way into the fight. I think you can garner takedowns against a guy like Andre Ewell. I think at times his footwork can be good, but at times I think he can be a little bit predictable where he's going to stand. Doesn't really use feints as much as I think he should. I think if he used feints with the length and he angles off a little bit and uses some of that footwork that sometimes he shows, then I think he would be a much more dangerous fighter. But I do think he's prone to getting taken down. I don't see Gutierrez really doing that because it's not something he's really known for. He's ever really done throughout his kind of career. So it's really who kind of gets off first, because this was brought to my attention by a really short dude. Like, this is the first southpaw I think that Gutierrez has fought in a long time as well. So he's always been fighting kind of orthodox fighters. So I'm interested to kind of see how that goes. But like I say, it's a fight I need to look into a little bit more. I'll give you a prediction just for now, but I think the official prediction I'll let you know later on in the week. As of right now, I'm kind of leaning maybe Andre Ewell. But like I say, I've not watched a lick of fight tape on either guy, and I will do. So I'll give you an official pick later on in the week for that one there. But this next fight is something, one that I really kind of do like. Let me bring that up. It's in the women's flyweight division. We've got Jillian Robertson against Miranda Maverick. Now, this was one initially over the weekend, I was coming in and I was favouring Miranda Maverick. And I pretty much watched her entire career outside maybe a couple of early fights. And there was a fight that she wasn't in Invicta, and I decided to watch that there and try and watch that there. I couldn't find it. But this is like a second fight in the UFC for Miranda Maverick. There's definitely, when you watch her from her early Invicta days where she had a couple of losses, and I'll get into that in a second, but I thought last time out she looks like she was kind of filling out to being like the flyweight that she should be. She looked bigger. She looked very muscular, which is something she's always looked. And she's definitely, with a skill set from early on, it's definitely made strides in different areas, with her Muay Thai, to her grappling, to her defense a little bit. But I did see holes in that. Even in our last fight, I thought that Joe Jua caught her with a couple of clean shots earlier on, counted her very, very well. But as the fight kind of went on, Miranda Maverick started to get a little bit more comfortable throwing that straight left, straight down the pipe, really, really putting it on the end of her nose. And then she threw a kind of step-in elbow, I want to say about 30 seconds or 45 seconds before she caught her with that kind of step-in elbow, I think it was, and caught her right on the bridge of the nose, completely messed up Joe Jua's nose. And that was kind of the end of the fight from there, because Joe Jua kind of just, I don't want to say she quit, but she was like, oh, that really got to me. That was the kind of fight ending part there. So caught her with a big shot. But obviously we see how this fight goes, because Jillian Robertson really doesn't have a lick of striking. It's not something that she relies on. It's not something she's overly great at. But what she is good at is getting in there and getting her hands on you. And if she can get her hands on you, she can chain wrestle quite well. She can get different takedowns through trips, through single leg takedowns. And I think with that, when you watch Miranda Maverick, you go back, she was taken down by Diana Bennett. This time last year, she was taken down by Pearl Gonzalez. She caught a single leg. She caught off a kick as well, got takedowns off that. Now, she can utilize takedowns as well, which is something that you have to kind of keep in mind. I don't think she'd want to do that here, because when she does, I think she oversells for the takedown and she makes mistakes. You watch I think it's the Brogan-Sanchez fight. She does that. She ends up with her on her back. Even she moves to top position as well. So, like I said, I think if this predominantly stays on the feet, Miranda Maverick should have the advantage and should kind of beat Jillian Robertson a little bit. I think if I'm Jillian, I try to get in close, try and get into the clinch. I think she's got fairly decent footwork on the feet, but she's just got nothing behind it, really, to be honest with you. When it comes to grappling, I think she is a level above. I think she can get takedowns. It's like some of the takedowns I have seen on Miranda Maverick, she's been single-legged, she's been body-locked, she's been tripped, she's been legs, takedowns off kicks. And once she gets there, she's okay down on the ground, but I think Jillian Robertson is just a different level than what she's faced. So for me, I'm leaning on the side of Jillian Robertson in this one here. I think she gets in close. I think she gets takedowns. I'm just waiting to see if that betting line is going to change, because I do think that a little bit of hype is on Miranda Maverick. It might kind of push the line up a little bit. She's plus 125 here in the UK. I still quite like that number. So I'm going to pick Miranda Maverick to lose her second fight in the UFC here, and Jillian Robertson will be my pick in that one there by decision. I've got as well. Welterweight division, we've got Gabe Green against Philip Rowe. I've seen some love out there for Philip Rowe, and honestly, I don't see it. Big welterweight, big reach. When he really starts to kind of put it on, he can be a little bit of a destroyer. You've seen that in the kind of late part of that Shabazian fight, but he's a little bit cocky. Does some silly shit in there, which I'm not too sure about. Looking away and then trying to throw shots, all that jazz. Just concentrate on your skills at hand and kind of use that. And in that fight with Leon Shabazian, comes in there, gets caught with an uppercut, I think it was, gets put in his backside, clearly loses that first round. In the second round, I think it's more, I don't mind taking anything away from Philip Rowe because he won the fight and he got a beautiful finish in the end, but I think if Leon had any kind of ilk of a gas in his body, I think that fight would have been a lot closer. The second round, clearly Philip started to take over. Then the third round, the first right hand that he threw, caught him right on the cheekbone, put him right up against the cage and really unloaded on him. But then you go back, I watched this fight before that, Island fights against a 4-5 fighter. he's trying to get take the fight to the ground, but then he's on his back for 3.5 minutes of that first round, and gets put in a position there where he doesn't really throw up an offensive guard or anything at all, puts him in a body triangle. He doesn't really look for a submission, works his way back to his feet. Then it gets into the second round, and you can see he's starting to pick apart this guy a little bit. He dove in head first, got caught in a high elbow guillotine, and got taken out there. So obviously he's got some things in this fight that he can use to his advantage, the reach and so on. But I think I was really pretty impressed with Gabe Green against Daniel Rodriguez. He's a very tough fighter, especially coming in short notice. I think it was a week he came in against Daniel Rodriguez, but I thought he showed a lot of heart, landed some big shots at Daniel Rodriguez. I think it was pretty clear that Daniel won the fight, but I thought he fought a really hard-nosed fight, stuck himself in there, really attacked the body, landed some big left hands over the top. Like I say, I think it's a pick and fight. I think where the line is, I kind of edge on the side of Gabe Green. I've seen some people bet Philip Rowe. I'm not sure whether it's a good bet or not, but if you've got plus money, then so be it. But I've got Gabe Green. I think he toughs this one out, but I can see a scenario where Philip Rowe really comes in here, and maybe if he can use his length and keep him at bay, and maybe just starts quicker than he usually does, then he could win the fight. But I'm going to be on Gabe Green's side here. Gabe Green's side here. That's what I'm trying to say. And the main fight of the Fight Pass prelims, we've got Ricky Simón jumping back in there very short notice after his win against Gaetano Perillo, against Brian Boom Kelleher. Good fight. I'm interested in this one because I don't get Brian Kelleher fights kind of right all that often, and I know he watches some of these videos, so like if you're watching this, no disrespect, brother, but I'm going to pick against you again here. I think that Brian Kelleher, I think, is more well-rounded as a fighter. I think that he's obviously got better striking, I think. I think he's got a little bit of wrestling. I think he's got a little bit of grappling, but I think the wrestling grappling is very heavily favoured in the Ricky Simón side. We have seen Ricky kind of put down. The whole Uriah Faber thing was a little bit of an eye-opener when that happened, but we've seen with his grappling, if he starts to really ring it all together, then you're in for a very tough night there. So kind of where I'm going off this, like Ricky Simón, I mean, that was inside the distance. Him against Gaetano Perillo was the play. I think I parlayed him up in that one there, and it was a pretty easy kind of parlay piece. But like I say, I've kind of went against Brian Kelleher a couple of times in the past. Ode Osborne last year, I decided to go against him. Hunter Azure was another one. I thought he was doing really well, Hunter, but then initially got caught with some big, heavy blows in the middle of that fight and got put out. And then it was a kind of a tough fight to be fighting Cody Stamann with the loss of his brother a couple of days beforehand. But then he rebounded against Ray Rodriguez, which I would kind of expect. The big thing for me is I think his striking's decent. I think if he can put combinations together, stop some of these takedowns, I think he's a live fighter. I think his odds are like plus 200, big odds, plus 200, plus 210. So if you're liking kind of dog odds or looking for dogs in this card, I think he's a live dog with his grappling, with his striking, I should say. If he can put his combinations together, keep Ricky from getting his hands on him and keeping it off the ground, then I think that he could have a shot in this fight. I just don't think he does it. I think Ricky really chains those takedowns together, has some spots there, has to be careful of leaving his neck in the wrong spot, because if he does that, Brian Kelleher, one of his go-to is the guillotine choke. It has been for many years. Just don't get caught in that, and I think that you come in there and you beat him there. So I'm going to take Ricky Simón. I'm going to take him via decision in that one there. I'm going to jump into the chat a little bit there. See, we've got about 30 people in here, which is much appreciated. Hope all is well. I will finally catch you live. Cheers for the good work. Much appreciated. Home wreck and knee knocker. Yeah, this is all about agreeing with Will's pick here. You disagree, you leave. By no. Everybody's here. Just be nice about it. So yeah, it was me with the southpaw info. Moyes, it was not you. My Umbrew brother. BP, Maki and Vieira are my underdogs thus far. Will, what's your thoughts? I'll get to that in a little bit. It's Burns or bust this weekend. I don't see it that way, Kyle, but yeah. Where else are we? I'm going to get back into the fights here, guys, just because I really like some of these fights that we're talking about. So now on to the preliminary card, the prelims here. Polyana Viana against Mallory Martin is up next. Interesting fight. Like, there's 3 ladies fights in this card, and I think they're all fairly well matched, honestly. I quite like the matchups that they put together for the ladies here. 2 girls I'm not overly high will do much in the UFC, if I'm being honest with you. I think that both girls, I mean, they're sticking around. I think this is one of the kind of fights for Mallory. She's only had 1 or 2 fights with the Contender Series and so on. So she's been around a little bit. Polyana's been around a little bit longer. She's fought some fairly decent girls. Well, when I say fairly decent, she's kind of no. In fact, she really has anything about it with Macedo and Whitmire and stuff like that. But I mean, she's dangerous in some spots with a jiu-jitsu, and I kind of seem to think here that Mallory Martin will give her opportunities to kind of use that jiu-jitsu here, because she's predominantly a grappler. She will scrap on the feet a little bit, but she is someone that will predominantly kind of look for takedowns. You watch her regional footage. She's did that before. She tried to do it against Vieira. That was never going to happen. She got took down in that fight. But if you go back to the Contender Series against Designy, that's what she used predominantly, was her takedown. She'd ring in there, she'd get single legs. She would chain wrestle really, really well up against the cage. But that's against an Italian striker, so it was always kind of going to work in her favour. And then against Hannah Cifers, as tough as Hannah Cifers is, she's not overly great, and you can't take her down. She can get super aggressive, and you can kind of use your momentum to really get the fight to the ground there. This is where I think that she could put herself in trouble here. So I'm looking forward to seeing if she can predominantly keep this on the feet, because I think if it's on the feet, I think it's fairly 50-50. I maybe give an edge to Mallory Martin. But when it goes to the ground, Polyana is very dangerous down there. And she's very flexible. She can get to many different submissions as well. So I'm going to lean on the Mallory Martin side. I know there's BP that's in the chat there is on the Viana side. Like I said, I wouldn't want any part of Mallory Martin at kind of minus odds, favourite odds. It would need to be a dog odds for me to even think about it. But I'm going to lean on the Mallory Martin side. I just think her wrestling, she might stay out of trouble a little bit. Just be careful. Don't stay in there too long. Don't leave any limbs lying about that Viana's going to be able to get a hold of, because if she does, she's kind of like a pit bull with it. She kind of really runs after that submission, and she will go for it. But I am kind of more on the Mallory Martin side in that spot there. Welterweight division, we've got the main man, Belal Muhammed against Dhiego Lima. I've got Belal in this one. I'm fairly comfortable that he wins this fight at a kind of higher clip than not. So I've got him in a parlay with a guy further up the card on this one here. I'm pretty confident. I've got my minus 300, which is chalky for me. I don't usually hit kind of chalk lines like that. But I was looking for a piece for the other guy that I've got in there. And I thought this was one of the more safer plays on the card for me, was the Belal Muhammed parlay piece. I kind of just like Belal as an overall soldier. He's like very durable. He's got good output. He's got takedowns in there. Can really stay in the fight for. I actually think he should be fighting kind of higher level guys, in my opinion, than what he's kind of been facing, because he's had a couple of decent names. I mean, he was in there with Luque. He's been in there with Tim Means and so on, but Jeff Neal is another one he's been in there, and he's always been competitive. Now, he might lose kind of fights, but he will always kind of stay competitive in kind of spots like that. And he can mix up well. That's what I like about his game. You watch his last fight against Lyman Good. Now, I think he's very hittable. I think his defense is always a little bit suspect, but he does stick himself in the fight. He does stay there, and he's very, very durable. The only time he's been taken out was that fight against Luque, where he caught a beautiful combination, put it right on his chin. That was the end of him. But he puts it all together very well. You watch his last few fights, he's got takedowns at right points. He got that submission against Sato, so he's shown he's got a little bit of a jiu-jitsu game there as well. Dhiego Lima, not someone I was initially very high on. Surprised when he got his run back to the UFC, but then he's came back to the UFC and he's won 3 in a row. Won a couple of very, very close split decisions against Court McGee and Luke Jumo. Knocked out Charles Laprise, kind of put him into the police force, I believe that Charles Laprise is doing now. But we've not seen him in, a year and a half nearly. So The one thing when I was watching some of those fights and split decisions, I'm not a big fan of his gas tank, so I think Belal's is going to completely outwork him. I think maybe where he has maybe got a straight advantage is maybe jiu-jitsu. But like I say, I think that Belal is far more a more well-rounded fighter than what Dhiego Lima is. So I've got Belal Muhammad. I think that he wins a fairly, I think probably a 30-27 in all honesty. I think that he can win that fight fairly easily. So we'll go back in the chat and say hello. What's up, some of you guys? Jack, hope you're very well. Let me know your picks, brother. Swingman's already thrown in the main event already with Burns by decision. Michael Tonkin, the Scotsman, what's up, my man? Got a weird feeling about the Belal fight and betting over. I think that's always a safe spot, Daniel, is betting overs in Belal Muhammad fights. So yeah, but we're moving on next. We've got the black belt hunter, Rodolfo Vieira against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. This was another guy that I thought as a parlay piece. I'm seeing a lot of people using some of the kind of higher line guys, your Belal's, your Rodolfo Vieira's as parlay pieces. I think he's minus 400, minus 410. That's seen. I mean, this is his third fight in the UFC. I was actually impressed with his fights in ACA as they call it now. Before that, over there in Poland and Brazil, I think he was fighting in spots like that. And I mean, this guy, I say his name at the start, like the black belt hunter. It kind of really says it all with this guy. Really muscular guy, very well put together. And I think the longer that he stays in the sport, I think the more you'll see his kind of skill set get a little bit better, him being more confident with his striking to the point where he can swing a little bit. Don't be scared to maybe get hit with a big shot, because you don't want to go to the ground with this guy at all. You've seen that in his two fights in the UFC. No matter if you're a black belt or not, he's a black belt hunter. Pahota, from what I hear, is a black belt as well, and like he had nothing on the ground for this guy once he got into certain positions. That arm triangle choke is, if he gets a sniff of it, it's over. But I think he's maybe got his toughest fight against Anthony Hernandez here, and it's not saying much because I don't think Fluffy's had the easiest run in the UFC. I don't think that he's he's had tough fights. I think Marcus Perez was a tough fight. Kevin Holland's definitely a tough fight, but he got starched in 40 seconds there in that spot. I just think eventually, and it's not hard to kind of break down a fight when it's like this, but eventually Rodolfo Vieira is going to find a way to get this to the ground. And if he gets it to the ground one time, that could be all she wrote. I'm just trying to think of some of the Hernandez fights, whether he got taken down, because I know he got takedowns against Park there, but taken down against Marcus Perez. I mean, Marcus Perez is going to get you down. If this guy gets you to the mat, I think that he will find a submission. I just feel that's what's going to happen here. But I do believe he's got a reach advantage here in this fight. So it'll be interesting to see if he maybe uses that. Only a slight one at that. So both guys the same height. But I'm going to take Rodolfo Vieira. If I was maybe making a play on this fight, I'd maybe make it for maybe the under 1.5 rounds. I quite like that spot because I think that he will get a takedown within that time span of the 7.5 minutes and kind of win the fight from there. So I'm going to take Rodolfo Vieira. I'll take him submission. I'll take him in the first. If I'm picking under 1.5, I'll pick him to win that in the first round. So the main fight of the prelims here, we've got King Bobby Green against Jim Miller. And this was one, when I heard this fight get put together, I was like, this was a fight that was supposed to happen, I think, many moons ago, and something happened, someone pulled out. But it's a kind of clear-cut fight to me where I think Jim will start off very strong, but will he be able to kind of maintain that? Because we've seen in his fights that he can kind of fade out a little bit since that Lyme's disease that he had, I want to say a few years back now, 5 years ago, however long it may be. It really affected his kind of cardio, kind of going into the later parts of fights. And Bobby Green, he is going to be in there for the majority of the fight. He's going to be in there for the full 15 minutes, and he's going to be fighting hard in that 15-minute span. But he's a guy that I just cannot trust, particularly after his last fight with, not with Clay Guida. It was with Clay Guida, but I think it was the one before that he lost a very, very, very close decision. So I'm kind of going to stay away. But picks-wise, I was very kind of close to looking at maybe betting Jim Miller, and then I thought to myself, I think there's better betting opportunities on dogs in this card, but Jim Miller could potentially get it done in the first round if he caught the guy in a submission. And in some spots, he has looked very, very good. So, but he's been facing guys that kind of inexperienced. You've got Roosevelt Roberts. I mean, you've got someone like Bobby Green, who's had a lot of fights in the UFC, been around a long time, very spry on his feet, quicker fighter, pretty decent with his striking. But when I look at the odds, I'm going to bring up the odds here, actually. Let me see. I mean, if I was to make a play on this one, I think it would be Jim Miller at plus 220. I don't want to really back Bobby Green at minus 260, but I kind of like fight starts round 2 as a kind of parlay piece. I don't know what that would be. Maybe the under 2.5 if Bobby Green could maybe get his striking off. So they're the kind of plays that I would like in that kind of fight. But overall, I think I'm going to go with Bobby Green. Initially, I was kind of going to go on the Miller side, but I don't want to say I feel confident. I think it's going to be one of my lesser confident picks in the card, but it's going to be Bobby Green in that one there. So that's us through the early prelims. So now on to the main card here. And it starts off in the middleweight division with a guy who's making his return after nearly 3 years out, I believe it is, and Julian Marquez, as he faces off against Maki Pitolo. And I've watched a couple of the podcasts with Julian Marquez, and I heard some of his stories regarding injuries, fights falling out, and so on. Him moving his camp from Vegas out to Glory MMA in Kansas. So, I mean, he's had his problems, and he's a guy that I've never been thoroughly. I don't want to say not impressed by him, because the guy's a fighter in the UFC and he's won a couple of fights, or he's won a fight in the UFC and won a very, very, and lost a very, very close split decision in his last fight against Dhiego, where Dhiego, I think, fought a really good game plan, got takedowns, just picked his spots pretty well, in my opinion, in that fight. And then he had the win over Darren Stewart, where he got a second round submission where he was getting taken down at will, but kind of by Darren Stewart, but then kind of caught him in a guillotine choke and got him out of there. Pretty reckless on the feet, pretty reckless with his gas tank, keeping that in kind of one spot as well. So that's kind of where I'm a little bit hesitant, especially with the nearly 2.5, 3 years absence from the sport and him changing gyms and so on. But like I say, he's maybe got everything ironed out, all his injuries, everything that's been going on. He's maybe got all that ironed out and is ready to go here. But I think he's kind of got a tough fight against Maki Pitolo here. I think Maki's not shown, I don't think he's had a great UFC run by any stretch of the imagination. Probably fighting for his job here after a couple of losses to Darren Stewart, where he got subbed in the first round, and lost to Impa Kasanganay, where he really got outstruck against a younger, more inexperienced fighter, which was a little bit of an eye-opener. But you can see some things with Impa that can give you a lot of kind of hesitancy and a lot of kind of things going forward that you might like with what you see with his game. But this is a kind of do-or-die fight. He's had a couple of wins in the UFC. He's had a win, against Charles Bird. A guy that you can't really have any confidence with, but I think that he can outlast Julian Marquez here. I think this first round's kind of going to be a little bit back and forth. I think that it's going to be, once again, the second, I think Maki will kind of not throw everything all at once, but I think Marquez might do that. I think he's a little bit of a marauder, comes forward, likes to throw heavy stuff. Like I said, the guy's a big dude as well, so you have to kind of be careful with what he throws. You're not in the line of that. But Maki's shown that he really doesn't get, he can be hit upon, but he doesn't really get knocked out. So for me, I'm actually going to lean Maki Pitolo. I didn't think I was going to actually kind of do that once I initially started watching the fights, but I feel I'd rather be on his side. And like I say, if I'm picking him at dog odds, I maybe have to think about betting him. I don't think I will at plus 150. I like a little bit more. But he is in the pool there where I might make a play on him, but I like a couple other dogs on the card. But I'll take Maki Pitolo via decision in that one there. Really looking forward to this fight in the bantamweight division, one of the hottest divisions in the sport. And this is a rematch from 2015, as we've got Pedro Munoz against Jimmie Rivera. And I watched this fight, I want to say an hour ago, and I forgot how good a fight these two actually had away back in 2015. I kind of edged it on the side of Pedro Munoz, but you couldn't really take away from Jimmie Rivera. That was his second fight in the UFC, going down to Brazil there, starting off really well. And what he did in that first round was he landed some great combinations. Started off with kicks and come up with uppercuts, really nice left hands, and just had really good combinations in that first round. But Pedro made some adjustments. That second round was a fire round. Both guys got hurt. Both guys nearly took a knee. Munoz caught him with a beautiful head kick, which kind of rocked Rivera a little bit. But in the third round, it was very, very close. So you can't really disagree with kind of the way the judges went. Being in Brazil, you would have thought it maybe went to Pedro, but Jimmie Rivera got the spot there. Now, since then, I think Jimmie's, I don't want to say deteriorated a little bit. I think that his game's a little bit more easier now to kind of game plan for. But since then, I mean, he's lost to only the best guys in the division. You're looking at Peter Yan, you're looking at Aljo who's fighting for belts, and Marlon Moraes. There was a little bit of bad blood between them two for many, many years, and he got kind of got in that first round with that head kick upside his head and in trouble. He is coming off a win over Cody Stamann, which is always a decent win because Cody's a very well put together fighter and he's hard to look overly good against. But he really just kind of worked his jab well, good combinations in that fight there, and was just a little bit faster, a little bit smarter fighter. Pedro Munoz, on the other hand, I think he was very unlucky against Frankie Edgar. I kind of lean more on his side that he kind of won that fight, in all honesty. But again, when you fight close, you can't really kind of hold it against him. And like I say, this is a big fight for him because he's never really a fighter that kind of loses a couple of fights in a row. He did run about the Rivera time, but now he's lost to two guys high up in that division. He's got a rematch here that if he loses this one, he's kind of no man's land in that division. And he's a destroyer. Like once he started to put all together in that Jimmie Rivera fight, he really started to land big shots. And you've seen that throughout. I mean, the Cody Garbrandt fight, you've seen the Brian Caraway fight. Like he can attack everywhere. The Brett Jones fight, I think, is a great example where he completely dismantled that guy. And he's good against all aspects, and he can wrestle a little bit. His jiu-jitsu is very, very good, and I think his striking is very underrated. I think he's got a lot of pop in his hands, his kicks. I think he's a well put-together fighter. It's just really where you see the edge in this one here, and I kind of see the edge more on the Pedro Munoz side, in my opinion. I think that he can go harder over the 15 minutes. I think if he starts quicker here, doesn't really sit back and kind of eat the shots he was in the first fight or in previous fights like he has been, I think that he can ride out a decision win here, maybe even stop Jimmie Rivera. So I'm going to pick Pedro Munoz for the win here. I like him at dog odds. He is a guy that I'm really thinking hard about throwing some money on. Because I like the odds. I think it's going to be a close fight regardless. But I think he's got more of an opportunity to get the fight out of there, and I think that he can definitely clearly win a couple of rounds as well. So I'm going to pick Pedro Munoz. I'm going to pick him. I'll pick him via a decision in that one there. So I'm going to go back into the chat and see what's up, guys. What's happening? Hope you're all well. If you haven't already, throw a thumbs up on the channel and on the video. It would be much appreciated. Isaiah Moore, who has got Gilbert Burns for the update. We'll get to that in a bit. Can't believe you called Clay Vieira versus Michael Johnson. Yeah, that was one, but I didn't bet it. So I can pick the fight right, but I don't bet it. So, yeah. Does this channel have subtitles, John? Like Bobby Green. Yeah, so I'm going to go back into this here and see what's happening with this fight card. Whereabouts are we? Kelvin Gaslim against Ian Heinisch is up next here. And I don't know why I'm confident in Kelvin Gaslim, because I think he's been a little bit up and down recently, but I am fairly confident that he is too good in too many areas against Ian Heinisch here if he decides to put it all together. That's the thing here. Can he put it all together? Because if he can, I think he can win this fight very, very handily across many, many areas. But with Kelvin Gaslim, he's been a little bit up and down. You've got to remember, the guy's only 29, so he's maybe not even hit his prime yet. But the guy's not really a realistic kind of middleweight. He is a welterweight at very best, a 5'8" middleweight. That's kind of short for that division. But this is a big fight for him. I mean, I don't want to say his life kind of got changed against Israel Adesanya, because he fought tooth and nail with the best guy in that division, and he gave him everything he had and went out in his shield in that last part of that fight. But then against Darren Till, he did not good in that fight at all. I thought he looked lackadaisical with his striking. I thought he looked a little bit lethargic with it. I thought he was a little bit flat with his footwork. I just think everything was a little bit off. And then I kind of backed him against Jack Hermansson. I thought he would turn it around and really come through that fight. I thought he would stop that fight in the middle part there in the second or third round. And then made a really bad decision of just keeping his foot in there. And Jack Hermansson, if he can get hold of something, the guy's very strong, very powerful, and he got caught there. But when I look at this fight here, I was watching Ian Heinisch, and he's tough. He's a hard guy to take out. He's coming off a really good win over Meerschaert where he popped him straight in the chin, put him out there. But to me, this is a step down from what he has been facing for many years. Your Chris Weidman's, your Michael Bisping's, your Jacare, which, to be fair, that Jacare fight was a little bit iffy. That could have been an L on his side as well. But what he's got is he's got really good speed for the division. He's got big power. And he's just a well-put-together fighter. But I just don't think it's mentally all there for Kelvin Gaslim. I don't think it ever will be. But I like him in this one. I think he's faster. I think he's got better shot selection with his shots, better wrestler. Heinisch, like you say, gritty, durable, will stay in the fight. Could I see a finish from Gastelum here? I'm going to pick him here via stoppage. I think those fast hands kind of come into play and he kind of gets back into the win column here. So, yeah, I'm going to pick Kelvin Gastelum. I'm going to pick him via stoppage in the middle part of this fight here, and him getting back into the kind of winning cycle. And like I said, the guy's still a player in that division, in my opinion. I still think that he could beat some of the top guys in that division. But he needs to kind of rectify that here and get back into it with a win over Ian Heinisch. So I have got him to win that one there. Co-main event of the night. Interesting co-main event. I was kind of wondering why they put this here, but then I thought, well, the UFC threw a lot into Maycee Barber initially. So you've got Maycee Barber making a return after a year with that kind of horrible injury she kind of had against Roxanne Modafferi last year. As she faces off against Alexa Grasso in the co-main event here. Really interesting fight. Literally watched these two girls fight this afternoon. Two totally kind of different styles with both strikers, but different styles in how they do it. So you've kind of got the really well put together boxer in Alexa Grasso against the kind of power hitter in Maycee Barber, who I actually think when I watch her, you look at her core and you just look at like how big her legs are and like her core of her body. The girl's got natural power. And we've seen that with some of her fights there. When she lands, she can be a little bit of a destroyer with her striking. But to me, when I look at this fight, especially if it stays on the feet, I think Grasso is a more well put together striker. I think she's a lot more technical. I think she throws in combinations. She doesn't throw really single shots. She always backs it up with 2-3 punch combinations. Where you look at Barber, she's really only throwing that one hit a quitter shot where she can catch you. I think that when it comes to the kind of defense, I think that Grasso's more sound on the feet, like defensively, than what is. I think she doesn't go back with her head back in the air. She tucks her chin, good head movement. And like I said, I think she's got better footwork. She cuts angles better. Both girls kind of land at quite a high clip as well. So I'm interested to see if they do start initially throwing off against one another. I think that Grasso has to be very careful because she can't really stay punching too long with Maycee Barber in that spot. So I have her as a kind of clear favourite on the feet. Just don't get caught with a big shot. Now, when it comes to the grappling, it's not something we've seen predominantly from Maycee Barber, but she's moved her camp again from Milwaukee to Chicago to Izzy Martinez, who's a guy that worked with John Jones for many years, probably still does work with John Jones on his grappling, one of the better kind of wrestling coaches out there. And that's something that I think is a little bit of the bad tendencies in Grasso is probably to take the fight to the ground. So if I'm Maycee Barber, I think she could have a bit of advantage in this fight on the mat. And I think, like I say, with the strength that she has, I think she could definitely get the fight there. So I'm a little bit hesitant with that there, but I'm kind of seeing this a little bit more as on the feet. And if it stays on the feet, I like Alexa Grasso in that spot. I just think she's a more well put together striker. But I've kind of got that feeling that Maycee could look to grapple here. So, like I say, my gut feeling when I was watching it was Alexa Grasso. I just think she's the better boxer, better combination striking, better footwork, all that jazz. So I would like this line to come down a little bit. If this gets back to a pick'em, or gets to a pick'em, I should say, then I will probably think about Alexa Grasso a little bit. If I can get a -1, anything below maybe -125, I'll have a serious think about. But I know there's some sharp people on Maycee Barber already, so they've actually threw their money down on Maycee, and I think that line may start to change. So that thought of Alexa Grasso might actually have to kind of become more of a reality in the next couple of days if that line decides to come down a little bit. So I'm picking Alexa Grasso. I'm going to pick him via decision. I'm going to pick her through via kind of striking-based win here. But I think that Maycee Barber, I'm interested to see how she looks, because that was a devastating loss last year against that was a devastating loss against Roxanne Modafferi, but all kind of props to Roxanne in that fight there. So we're now on to the main event of the night, and I'm really interested in this fight. You've got the king of the welterweights right now. You've got Kamaru, the Nigerian nightmare, Usman against Gilbert Burns. And it's quite interesting because I've been making picks for a long time in this channel, and Gilbert Burns has been around for a long time, as both guys have. And I thought to myself, I remember saying something about Gilbert Burns one day having a UFC belt. Now, this was at the time when he fought at lightweight, and I didn't think it could possibly be up a division at welterweight that he could possibly get that strap. But he said in one of my early, I think it was his second fight in the UFC, I think this guy can touch UFC gold. And then he went through some trials and tribulations at that division, moved up to 170, and has looked an absolute destroyer and looked like a top 5 guy in one of the best divisions, or top 3 guy in one of the best divisions that we have in the sport. But like I say, between these two, it's interesting because these guys had a lot of sparring rounds. Kamaru Usman's been in the corner of Gilbert Burns. They've prepared together for fights, so they probably know a lot about each other. I actually really like the fact that Kamaru Usman's moved to Denver for this. I don't know if he'll ever go back to Florida, back to that specific camp, Hard Knocks 365. But I love the camp where he went to with Trevor Whitman, because I think he's one of the genius kind of coaches in the sport who is really going to, I think he's going to polish off Kamaru Usman's striking and kind of help him, kind of take him to the next level. Now, you look at Kamaru Usman and what does he really kind of bring to the table? When I kind of look at strength for strength through fights here, I just think there's more factors on his side, and the guy is like he said before, he's a problem for a lot of guys in that division. I really do think so. I think he's got a clear advantage in many, with kind of like a wrestling with his grappling, but I think the clear submission grappling is obviously on the Gilbert Burns side. But so this is where Usman has to be very, very careful if he's taking this fight to the ground, which I don't think he should predominantly, because Gilbert Burns he's a 3-time world champion jiu-jitsu guy, practitioner. So you have to be super careful with that. When it comes to things like durability, I think cardio, just being stronger, defensively aware, I think that Kamaru Usman, in my opinion, is just a more... I just think he has more factors in that there. I think, like I say, on the feet, I think his striking's actually underrated. I think he's got some big power in there. I think he's got like 5 or 6 knockdowns in the UFC. Landed some big shots and some decent fighters. I mean, I love watching the Colby Covington fight, not only because it's a great fight and it's a great 2 foils coming together and a lot of bad blood between those two, but the fact that he got that finish in the fifth round, sat Colby down, was brilliant for me to see. And that they are... just when I look at the factors of this one here, I just think that he has so much more with a pace. I actually think he can muscle Gilbert Burns against the cage, and it's something he did against Woodley, and he's did in previous fights, where he can put you kind of in that spot where he can keep you there, can land some shots, can lay against you, can grind on you. And I think that's something that could come into the fore here. I mean, Gilbert Burns has made an absolute massive jump up since he moved to welterweight. He's got some fast hands, he's got some big power, some really good striking, some very, very dangerous low kicks, which is something that he's used against Gunnar Nelson, against Tyron Woodley. He saw some nasty kind of low kicks in there. Kinchenko, especially, I thought he showed in that one there. So that parlay that I mentioned earlier on is Belal Muhammed and Kamaru Usman. I'm very confident that Kamaru Usman can come out here and win this fight. I know a lot of you guys that are in the chat there are completely on Gilbert Burns in this spot. And that's kind of interesting to me because, like I say, when I look at this skill for skill, there's more on the Usman side for me. Like I say, durability, pace, power. I think his striking's decent. I really like him in this spot here, and I bet him at minus 275. I've got a parlay with Usman and Belal. It's minus 122 that I got that at, and I was thinking about adding Vieira at one spot, but I thought two's enough. So I wanted to really get that down there. So Kamaru Usman, to me, I think he's going to win I don't want to say an easy decision, but I think a comfortable decision. I think that he's going to win a comfortable decision here, and that's one of the props that I might look at as well. So Kamaru Usman is my pick in that one there, and I think he retains his UFC welterweight championship. So guys, thank you very much for sticking with me through this one here. Much appreciated. I think that this has been a really good breakdown. I really enjoyed getting into some of these fights here. If you're late in here, throw a thumbs up if you can. It all helps with the people out there, or the YouTube kind of helping you out where they can get your video out there for more views or whatever. So I'm going to go back into the chat here before I head off, guys. It's been 45 minutes, 46 minutes. So yeah, but I'm seeing some love there actually for Ian Heinisch via sub. Wild. Ian Heinisch via decision. Moyes Audio was picking him there to win via submission. That would be a come up in the books there. I won on Hernandez by sub round 1. I used to be good. There from Daniel. Rough fight, first fight back for Barber. I kind of agree, but I think she's live in the fight, and it's an underdog as well. I think she'll be popular. So yeah, death, taxes, and Usman by decision. We'll leave it at that, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around for me. I'll maybe see if I can do a stream on Thursday night if I've not got any dad duties on. Thank you so much for the support. Look forward to UFC 258. We're back next week. What's the card next week, actually? Let me bring this card up for next week. It's the heavyweights again, I think. Curtis Blades against Derek Lewis. Interested to see how that one goes down. Guys, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for sticking around with me. All the very, very best. Enjoy the fight card when it comes around this Saturday night. And just take care. All the best. Thank you.